You ever heard the saying that readers are leaders? Or like Bill Gates or the average CEO or whatever reads like 50 books a year. Well, I actually agree with that reading and learning is like absolutely essential, but I feel like sometimes like I've read so many books and it's just not always led to like application. Like look at this, I'll even show you. So this is my one bookshelf that you see in my videos, and then I'm not a hoarder, trust me, but like I'm like cleaning out a bunch of stuff right now, and so I just have these books like thrown everywhere. So here's my thing. I'm not going to give you like the standard book review. What I'm going to tell you are about 3 books that I come back to like all the time. Like probably every few months I either reread them or at least reference them. So if you only read 3 books this year, I would read these 3, but reread them, keep coming back to them over and over, and start to actually apply the stuff. And I'm trying to focus here on stuff that's not just happiness or success, but kind of both. I think these 3 books will help you improve both your kind of quality of your experience and happiness, and help you to be more productive and more effective. So here we go. Here are the 3 books to read this year. Okay, drum roll, please. Book number 1 is Awareness by Tony de Mello. Now I want to pick this one first because I think it's the one that you are probably least familiar with or least likely to have heard about. It's kind of an older one, and something I thought was interesting as I was researching this is that it's the only book recommended by Tim Ferriss, Naval Ravikant, and Eckhart Tolle. Now, Tim Ferriss, of course, kind of the original like lifestyle design, self-help guy, wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. Naval is like a very famous investor and thought leader, and Eckhart Tolle wrote The Power of Now, which is maybe the most popular spirituality book of all time. And what this book is about is really awareness, as the title suggests, the perils and opportunities of reality. And that title, the subtitle I should say, kind of speaks to the theme of the book, which is not all like this comforting, loving stuff. Like a lot of it's pretty hard and like in your face and challenging a lot of your beliefs and assumptions. But in doing that, it's meant to evoke awareness so that you view yourself and your life a bit differently. In fact, in there he tells the story of this guy who meets like a wise old monk or something. He says like, what's the secret to wisdom? And he says awareness. And he's like, well, how do you define awareness? What is that? And he just says awareness means awareness, awareness, awareness. And it's really about kind of changing or challenging your own beliefs from this place of awareness. And I'll read you even a little sample just so you get an idea of it. So this one's titled Obstacles to Happiness. What I'm about to say will sound a bit pompous, but it's true. What is coming could be the most important minutes in your lives. If you could grasp this, you'd hit upon the secret of awakening. You would be happy forever. You would never be unhappy again. Nothing would have the power to hurt you again. And I mean that, nothing. It's like when you throw black paint in the air remains uncontaminated. You never color the air black. No matter what happens to you, you remain uncontaminated. You remain at peace. There are human beings who have attained this, what I call being human. Not this nonsense of being a puppet, jerked about this way and that way, letting events or other people tell you how to feel. So you proceed to feel it, and you call it being vulnerable. I call it being a puppet. So you want to be a puppet? Press a button and you're down. Do you like that? But if you refuse to identify with any of those labels, most of your worries cease. Later, we'll talk about fear of disease and death, but ordinarily, you're worried about what's going to happen in your career. A small-time businessman, 55 years old, is sipping a beer at a bar somewhere, and he's saying, well, look at my classmates. They've all really made it. The idiot. What does he mean they made it? They've got their names in the newspaper. Do you call that making it? One is president of the corporation. The other one has become the chief justice. Somebody else has become this or that. Monkeys. All of them. Who determines what it means to be a success? This stupid society. The main preoccupation of society is to keep society sick, and the sooner you realize that, the better. So that can be a little like harsh and in your face, and it's not all like that. But the point of even that passage is to really challenge you to think of like, well, what are the things that lead to unhappiness or stress or anxiety in your life? And a lot of them are kind of just expectations or perceptions or beliefs about reality or status or what you should or shouldn't do. And he's like, his point is like, all of those are made up, right? All of those are either mental constructs or social conventions. And by challenging those, You can live from a place of higher awareness and not be as attached to those worldly issues and worries. That may give you a little sample. Book number 2, Atomic Habits. Tiny changes, remarkable results. And once again, that kind of subtitle, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results, really captures what this book is all about. It goes on to say an easy and proven way to build good habits and eliminate bad ones. So when we think about that idea of tiny changes, remarkable results, it's referring to something called compounding. Now, a guy named, I think it's on my bookshelf back there actually, Albert Einstein, said that compounding is the most powerful force in the entire universe. And he said that because it leads to these kind of recurring behaviors, right, that turn into more and more and more. It's kind of like, if you were to get 1%, and he talks about this in this book, if you were to get about 1% better per day, by the end of the year, you'd be 37x better. Incredible. And we see this all the time, right? If you just start drinking a little bit too much and too often, what can happen, right? That slippery slope where it becomes, now it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it becomes every day. And then obviously that spirals down. But conversely, same thing, you start exercising a little bit more. And pretty soon, 2 years later, you're running marathons. So much of change in lives as human beings and our behavior kind of follows this pattern of slowly, then all at once. In fact, a guy, Charlie Munger, he says addiction means that the burdens are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. And so I think that you learn a lot about that in here, again, because it talks about both negative and positive habits, that through these small incremental changes in behavior, you can get really outsized results if you just let those changes have time to take effect. But I'll give you a little bit more tactical review here. Something I love about this book is he does a really, really good job of designing kind of a framework for how habits work. And he talks about it as cue, craving, response, reward. So think about this. Every habit or behavior, for the most part, starts with a cue, which is like a trigger. So it could be a time of day. It could be in my case, if I see candy or a dessert or something just out, I'm likely to react to that. So you have a cue, some sort of behavior or stimuli or time that triggers something, and it creates a craving, okay? A desire to either go towards or avoid something. Then you have a response, so that actually doing the behavior. And then you have the reward for the behavior, which reinforces that pattern so that when the cue comes up again, you're more likely to respond to it. So I'll give you maybe an example of a good one and a bad one. Let's say your bad one is procrastination. Okay. So the cue is you're sitting down to work on an important project. So right, that's the cue. That creates a craving that you want to avoid doing that or give into some distraction because, this work's going to be really hard and I don't feel like focusing, but, if I just look at my phone or something that'll feel good, right? So you want to then do that. The response, let's say, is you check your phone or social media or whatever. And then the reward is, as you look on social media, you get the little peaks in dopamine because of the bright colors and videos and all of that. And then that just reinforces the behavior so that next time you sit down to work and you're feeling I don't know if I want to do this, you have that cue. You think, I could distract myself. Now, an example of a good habit, let's say, is exercise. So you say, okay, my cue is right after work at 5 o'clock, I'm going to go to the gym Monday through Thursday. So the cue is 5 o'clock. And then the craving. Now, in the beginning, as you're building the habit, sometimes you have to do certain things to help create that sense of craving. So you may visualize positively how it will feel to get a workout in. And 3 months from now, when I'm feeling better and have lost weight, how will that feel? You can also use maybe negative association of, the craving being, if I don't do this, what are the bad things that'll happen? So you play that game. But let's say you 5 o'clock hits, so you say, okay, I know that maybe I don't totally feel like it, but I want to go to the gym because I know it's good for me. Okay, so then the response, you actually go. And then the reward is you have that feeling of satisfaction of having followed through on it. You get that kind of runner's high or endorphin release from exercise. And maybe you have your protein shake too, even to add another reward on top of that. And so then you could see how if you were to stick with that for maybe a month, that pretty soon it would be 5 o'clock, it's time to go work out. You do the thing, you feel good, you have your shake, And you build that feedback loop. So and this is like getting real practical and real tangible here from this book, if you want to change a habit, focus on all 4 of those, or even just pick one. So if you're trying to eliminate first a bad habit, cue. So try to remove or reduce some of those triggers. If you're trying to drink less, just don't buy alcohol, for example. Craving. Okay, try to create a negative association so that you don't crave it. If you are trying to quit smoking, think about how bad it tastes or how bad it is for your lungs, etc. Response is try to make it harder to even do the behavior at all, right? Like if your bad habit you're trying to break is getting distracted looking at social media, like delete the apps off your phone. And then reward, right, is try not to reward those bad habits. Now apply the inverse. If you want to build a good habit, kind of squeeze it into that formula, so to speak. Create a clear trigger or cue. So that is the time, place, and or time of like your behavior that you'll do it. So for instance, you might say, after my morning cup of coffee, I will read 10 minutes. For example, craving, okay? Again, using that kind of mental visualization to associate some positive feelings with it of, well, why do I even want to do this? There's probably benefit if it's a good habit. And then try to make the behavior easy. So if you're trying to read more, maybe buy a audiobook thing if you're better at listening, or, leave the book sitting out like on your kitchen table so that you actually see it, right? Try to make the behavior easier. And then finally, reward yourself for it. If you do read every day this week, or you get your workout in every day this week, or whatever it is you're trying to do, make sure you stop and reward yourself for it and celebrate in some small way. So there you have it. Those are your cliff notes for Atomic Habits by James Clear. Finally, the third book here I'm going to recommend is Beyond Profit and Productivity by Jackson Kirchhoff and Paul Crisper. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. It's a good book, but it's not as good as the one I'm about to show you, but that was a shameless plug. But if you are like in a business or have a team and like leadership and stuff, you might want that book because it's all about how to tactically apply like positive work culture and stuff. But anyway, this is the actual one that you should reread a bunch of times. And I chose for this because I reference it fairly often. Now, this is called the Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. And I want to address something right at the beginning, because you might be saying like, well, Jackson, I'm not like a business owner or entrepreneur, or maybe you don't even work in that. Like you're a teacher or like a mail person or something, or police officer. Hey, that's all fine. Okay, let me explain. This book was written by a guy who was a pretty high up person at a big Fortune 50 company, I think. And he basically said like, look, the average MBA program is not maybe the best investment if you actually want to learn about business. And so he read like 100 of the best business books and designed his own Personal MBA. And so I picked this one because even if you're not, again, like a entrepreneur, I want to build $1 million company or something, the principles in this book are like just super useful reference to have like the basic knowledge of how businesses work and how to like think like a business person or think in an economic context. So I think it'll go a long way in terms of helping you just understand in general, like if you're trying to invest or you have a friend who runs a business, or again, even if you're in a larger company, right, that has anything to do with business, it's going to be really useful, some tactics and concepts for you to think about there. But again, just to have like almost, right, like we don't even really get like a business 101, money 101 class in school, right? Like if you're a business major, sure. But if you just like went to high school and then maybe went to college for like pre-med and medicine, or like teaching, or to be a librarian or a plumber, like literally any of that, you don't really get a lot of this. And so it's going to be useful reference information just so you have like a, again, very basic, and it's interesting, but just a basic knowledge of business. So like I'll even give you a sample of like the kind of business 101 stuff. Like, so the very first like page of the actual book is the 5 parts of every business. A business is a repeatable process that makes money. Everything else is a hobby. That's from Paul Freet, who's an entrepreneur. Roughly defined, a business is a repeatable process that, number 1, creates and delivers something of value. 2, that other people want or need. 3, at a price they're willing to pay. 4, in a way that satisfies the customer's needs and expectations. 5, so that the business brings in enough profit to make it worthwhile for the owners to continue the operation. And so it's like, it doesn't matter if you're running a solo venture or $1 billion brand. If you take any one of these things away, you don't have a business. And okay, this is kind of interesting even, right? A venture that doesn't sell the value it creates
is a nonprofit. A venture that doesn't deliver what it promises is a scam, and a venture that doesn't bring in enough money to keep operating is not going to exist very long. And so he goes on to tie these in together to say every business depends upon value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery, which is like fulfilling and doing the thing, and finance. So I hope, again, that just gives an introduction of like, it's very like foundational, fundamental business stuff. And so even if you don't read like the whole thing cover to cover, like just useful reference information for like being a human in our modern society and economic context. So there you have it. One more time. Number 1, Awareness by Tony de Mello. Number 2, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And number 3, The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. These are books that, again, like I wouldn't say just like, oh, you should read more books or something. Like really go deep with these, read them a couple times, reread them. If you only read 3 books this year, these may be the best 3. And I think the first one will help you a lot with like your mental health and happiness and spirituality. Atomic Habits will help you to be more productive and healthier because you're going to be able to change your behavior using habits. And then the Personal MBA is just going to make you a lot more knowledgeable and well-rounded. So thank you for watching. Here's a video that YouTube thinks that you will really enjoy. As always on this channel, I try to give practical tools from both the art and science of the study of happiness to help you be at your best in both your work and your life. So if you've enjoyed this, consider subscribing. Check out the information down below where I share a bunch of free resources. You may consider donating as well to support the Happiness PhD project. And you can also find more about how I work with organizations at Happiness Means Business. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.